You're going to make some bad cold calls before you make good cold calls. Just like barbecue, you got to make bad barbecue before you can make good barbecue. And we can go off on that too. But
I live and die by numbers, man. And that's the whole thing to me. Numbers have no emotion. There's no psychology there. So, you need to, if you're going to work in my agency, you better have thick skin because I'm going to call you on your numbers. Not in front of everybody, but we're going to have a conversation about it. And if you're not hitting those numbers, then that conversation's likely to be uncomfortable, but it also should never be a surprise.
And I've learned a lot by you. Like, hey, if David can do this, I could do this,
You would think that money would be enough, right? You would think that if you just say, I'm going to go out and make my book $1 million, having $1 million revenue book and whatever your commission split is, that would be enough. That's never enough for me. I want something tangible in addition to that.
My clients were like, dude, what else can you sell us? I'm like, we like you. You answer your phone. You're reliable. You give good advice. You understand what we're going through. What else can you sell me? And I just got tired of telling them nothing. The one thing that consumers are looking for is assurance, not insurance, that they have the best stuff available and there's no gaps. If you can provide security that they have the best stuff possible, and you can assure them that and be transparent with your marketing approaches.
We're the middleman here. We don't set the rate. And I think so many times we get blamed for pricing, but we don't have good ways to explain to people why we're in the situation we're in.
If you think you could go do this better than I can, go pack your stuff right now and go to your own agency. I went, you're right. I'll see you later. He's like, whoa. Are you serious? I'm like, I'm dead serious.
If you plan this stuff out in advance, if you know who it is that you're going there to try and connect with, and you make it a point that you're going to find, like, dude, I literally would walk the trade show halls until I found that person. I didn't care if they were at somebody else's booth. I'd tap them on the shoulder, engage in conversation, and we were off to the races at that point.
I do see a lot of producers out there, and if you're hearing this and you're in earshot of this podcast and you find yourself on an island to where you're out working for an agency and you're not getting the support you need. I see this all the time. Reach out, find somebody that can help you. I have had help from David, from tons of other people that they're giving selflessly of their time and their knowledge to me for no strings attached. The problem is people like you tend to lead the rest of us. And your expectations are far higher for everybody else, and those expectations will never meet.
A lot of people out there that concern themselves more with what their peers think of them than what their clients and prospects think of them, and make that evident on social. And to me, that's a dangerous place to live and let your headspace be in. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Power Producers Podcast, where we are refining and redefining the sales game. And today we're going to talk to one of my good friends, one of my travel buddies, a great American and someone who served in the U.S. Marine Corps. And honestly, just an all-around good dude to hang with. And we're going to talk a little bit about production, what he's doing in his agency, a little bit about maybe how he made the transition from being a Marine to coming into the insurance industry and being a Marine in the insurance industry. Because once you're a Marine, you're always a Marine. I learned that really early on by accidentally talking to somebody about being an ex-Marine, and I'll never make that mistake again. So anyhow, Aaron Robertson with Robertson Insurance Group from San Antonio. I got on here 4 minutes late, which officially made me 7 minutes faster than Scott and Bradley if you were recording with them. So I win.
Absolutely, man. I'm glad to be on it, man. It's always a pleasure. Love the podcast, and even love more being on the podcast.
Yeah, cool. So, first off, I think maybe what we need to talk a little bit about is why we do what we do, man. And what I mean by that is we bust our cans every single day so we can do cool stuff like go to Panama and go fishing this past July, which was just a trip. And being completely transparent, kind of wondering why all the fish seemed to be a lot bigger after we left.
You've been on Instagram too, right? Yeah.
And the variety of what they were catching was different. So I'm almost wondering if it's kind of like, and I guess pun intended, a bait and switch on that Instagram footage. Did those people really catch that stuff a week or two after we left, or did they just have that in the file somewhere to roll out to try and get people to come during the slow season?
Apparently you've been on Instagram too. I keep wanting to tag you, and I think I've sent you on a couple things like, dude, this guy's hauling in a 600-pound marlin. I'm like, where was that? We couldn't find a marlin. We found everything else but a marlin.
Marlin, sailfish, multiples every day, and all we got was one piece of bait that had a chunk taken out of it that they said, oh, it's either a marlin or a sailfish, as we sped head on into a lightning and thunderstorm to go fishing.
That would have been some good B-roll too, though. Yeah, just kind of like some final countdown by Europe or something.
Oh, I have it.
Do you?
I have it.
We got to make that happen. So
yeah, no, I actually do have, and I don't remember if it was my stuff or yours, but we actually do have us. I think we're pulling away from it. We're not necessarily going into it, but like legit black clouds everywhere. And me thinking to myself, why are we still out here? But
yeah.
I mean, what a cool trip it was, and obviously tongue in cheek and sarcastic on the stuff.
Of course.
It is what it is. You know, fishing is fishing. It's not necessarily called catching for a reason.
100%. Right.
But man, what a cool thing, man. That lodge was good. I felt like the food was good.
Yeah.
I think we're still missing the authentic Panamanian food experience, whatever that means. I mean, we ate at an Argentinian steakhouse in Panama City, Panama, which is a different experience than eating at an Argentinian steakhouse in Panama City, Florida.
Right, 100%. Yeah, and I think the first time we got there, we did a little chicken. Is obviously a fast food chicken place. We were just starving, me and you and Landon, walking around just trying to find something. But that was as close to authentic food as we got. But yeah, I mean, it was a great trip. I think the night we got there, that was when they did the assassination attempt on President Trump. And the guy, remember, he's trying to, oh, look over here, and we're on our phones. We're like, wait a minute, we're focused here. And I felt kind of bad, but we kind of got all the answers we needed by the time we got to the lodge. And I mean, was there a better view when we pulled in that lodge? The timing of that was perfect.
Yeah, like legitimately the pinnacle of the sunset, like the absolute perfect time. Sky was like magenta purple, water, you're looking out over the water kind of down below, like just absolutely perfect. Actually, it was so good that I thought I would deploy my drone at one point to get footage, and I realized very quickly that I will probably never take a drone on a trip with you again. At first, I thought it was Daniel's song, but I think you're actually my bad luck, because I deploy my drone and it immediately starts getting attacked by birds.
Yeah. Because I remember we came back from fishing, and you had the drone out, and it wouldn't sync, or it wouldn't load or update or whatever it was. And then the birds were attacking you, but either my birds apparently or Daniel's fishing rod, your drone's not going to fly. But
either that or that freaking, maybe Song just deployed robotic birds to come to Panama, and since he didn't join us.
He's very capable, that guy. Don't underestimate that guy. He could do it. So
doesn't surprise me a bit. Yeah. So talk a little bit, man. Your agency's going through some growth right now. I mean, fill us in on what you're doing there.
So, I was thinking about this. We have, I was just telling somebody, I just did another interview. I went from selling insurance out of my house with a 3.5-year-old going to pre-K, and then a newborn in the other room when my wife was at work. And I'm picking up phones and locking myself in the room, and to kind of where we're at now, where we're starting a second agency and acquiring 2 agencies in the next 60 days. And just putting LOIs on stuff and trying to make it happen. But I've learned a ton, and I think a lot of that, and I'm sure you'll rebuff this, but is a testament to people like you and Scott and Bradley that is, I have taken what y'all have said and say, you know what? If he's going to tell me that's successful, and then I know you're successful, I'll do it. Like, you don't need to worry about me not doing what you're telling me to do. Now, it might not get done as soon as you want me to get done, but I've got a list of stuff that I did at Paradiso Presents that's that long. And I, a year and a half ago, finally got that checked off. He hasn't done that since 2019 or so. So slow and steady wins the race. Not everything's going to get done. But I'm excited. I've got great people, which is hard to find. I got great carriers. I'm blessed to have an 80% commercial book of business with a 20% personal lines. We're still do the benefit side. We're doing a lot of stuff when it comes to health insurance and ancillary stuff. We kind of want to be everything that a mid-size business needs for all their insurance needs. So we're having a lot of success, and I couldn't be more proud.
So talk about a little bit. You get out of the Marine Corps, and from what I remember, your first foray into the insurance industry was with AFLAC or a voluntary group like that, right?
Yep.
And then you migrated from that over to what you're doing now. What was the transition from military to AFLAC like, and then ultimately from AFLAC to where you're at now? Because I mean, I view that transition almost as if you just added something else. You never quit doing the AFLAC stuff, did you?
Right. No, I still do it. Yeah. So out of the Marine Corps, went to college. I got a biology degree and minors in chemistry and forensics.
Those are very applicable to the insurance industry.
100%. Just
Help
did
you
it while
every
ago.
day.
Absolutely. So I tried to get a job doing that. That didn't work, obviously. And I went back to what I know and love, which is sales. And I stayed with that. But my cousin came in and bought a car from me. And I happened to take a peek at what his financials looked like. And I was stunned. I was like, okay.
Best kept secret ever, man.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm like, I went back to my desk and I said, yeah, we got to change this because he's not better than me. And so I jumped in with AFLAC, had a rough start. I think I said once on the podcast, and I don't mind sharing it. I can prove it. I made $9,000 total dollars all 12 months in the year. Were some very lean times. Came home to power and water being cut off. Luckily, we had gas.
That's
Yeah,
that's when you learn you can get a water key at Ace Hardware for like $50 and it's cheaper than
yeah.
paying your water bill.
Well, I went.
I heard it from a friend. I heard it from a friend.
Allegedly. Right. So I went to my neighbor's water hose. There's snow on the ground, and I went in her water hose. I was too. If I had asked her, she's a little old lady. I probably would have been invited into her home to shower, but I went out in snows on the ground in Lubbock, Texas, and showered in her water hose because I was too proud, right? And I had appointments the next day in eastern New Mexico. But yeah, I mean, they were seeing what I was doing. I was breaking records and setting new benchmarks for performance and all that. And it was that lagging effect of production, right? That that it may not hit right now. It's a latent effect, right? So you do the work and then it happens. And that's what kind of they were seeing. And then after my first 12 months, that work started kind of paying off. And, I think Scott says it a lot. He's like, hard work leaves clues and success leaves clues. And that's what happened. And, they want to offer me a promotion.
Unless you're traipsing around your property in your overall shirtless, I mean, then
yeah,
maybe some questions there.
Different definition of success, right? But yeah, so did that. But just seeing what my clients wanted from me, my clients were like, "Dude, what else can you sell us?" Like, I'm like, "We like you. You answer your phone. You're reliable. You give good advice. You understand what we're going through. What else can you sell me?" And I just got tired of telling them nothing. So I took a management position in San Antonio. I won Agent of the Year after 3 years of starting a scratch organization that had a bunch of empty quota in it, that took it to the top district in the state in 2014. And then again, just, clients were like, "Hey, what else can you sell me?" I'm like, "I don't know." So I branched in the health insurance side, partnered with some folks to kind of learn the commercial side. And um, a fortuitous meeting that happened. We were brought in as a good friend of mine. He's a farmer's agent, long term. He's always the Toppers Club and all that. Great dude. I was working for him as a producer, and he just was doing a rear end to, and not mine, but just collectively. And I was in with the earshot. And one of the things he said, he's like, "If you think you could go do this better than I can, go pack your stuff right now and go to up your own agency." I went, "You're right. I'll see you later." He's like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa. Are you serious?" I'm like, "I'm dead serious." And it was a personal relationship that I had with him, but a business one that wasn't working out. The personal one I want to salvage. So I said, before I hate you as a person, I have to sever this business relationship. And we're still good friends. But I just said, "Hey, I'm just gonna give it a shot," and throw it out there. And yeah, I mean, started at the house, like I said, and here we are, several years later. So that was 2017 time, and 7 years later, so we're on our way.
I think it's interesting, man, because once you get to a certain point where you realize you really don't need to be working for other people. And I've been there for probably 6 years before I actually took the jump and started my own agency. But once you do, there is no turning back, in my opinion.
No, no, 100%. I had a Lynn Barnes, and he was a territory manager, and he said, when I won Agent of the Year, he came and took me and my manager to dinner at Perry's, and he asked me a bunch of questions, and he looked at me, he says, "Can I tell you something?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "You are what's wrong with AFLAC." I'm like, "Excuse me?" He says, I know. I was like, "Well, really? Okay." He said, "Hear me out." He says, "You are a type A, very driven person." And he says, "If I tell you not to do something, you're going to go do it in spite of me telling you to do that. Like that, me telling you to do it or not do it is going to give you the fuel to go do it." And I'm like, "You're absolutely right." He said, "The problem is people like you tend to lead the rest of us. And your expectations are far higher for everybody else, and those expectations will never meet." And so I learned as a manager of people that I will never get a person who's not the same personality as me to go do what I do. I want to get the most out of that person, the most that they're capable of. I want to get the most out of them. That doesn't necessarily mean they're good or better or whatever than I am. It's the most that they're capable of, and then push them to outperform their last year's performance. But it's pushed me to accept things like I used to think that employees had to be 1099 or they didn't really want to work. I used to think that W2 people were lazy and want to sit around their butt and all that. The reality is they have a different mindset and different circumstances that I don't relate and identify with, that I have to accommodate. And when I learned to grow and trust people, and I've got great people I can trust now, then my agency took off because I can't do this by myself. I've tried, and I have heart medication that proves I tried. It will kill us, and I don't want to do that.
So now you kind of
Uh,
going through another iteration of agency life, and instead of going out and growing organically through production, you've moved into more of an acquisition strategy. What drove you to do that?
Listening to you, Bradley, and Scott, I'm like, well, and Rob Bowen, I'm like, if and I love Rob. I'm like, if Rob's doing this, I can do this. And that's kind of the same thing with and I've learned a lot by you. Like, hey, if David can do this, I could do this. But I
I'd be
think
the first one to tell you if I can do it, anybody can do it.
I say the same thing to people daily. Like I'm not that smart. But the one thing I'll tell you is that there's three ways I think to grow an agency. I think, or there's to grow a business, we'll say, right? You can affect the cost of the thing, right, which we have no control of. We can affect our margin, which we can control cost, overhead, things like that, drive that down to create the margin. Or three, we have to increase the distribution, right? Distribution, we have more people selling that thing. That's kind of how an acquisition works. I've got more people paying us. The distribution's all spread out, but that's where we're at now. I'm willing to take some risks. Our agency is profitable. We're making money, and so I'm in a good position to do it. But going back to something that Joe Paradiso told me, he said, "Why aren't you taking more risk? Why haven't you started your agency before I did?" And he says, "You're worried about the wrong thing. You're worried about how high of the cliff you're jumping off of. You need to be worried about how deep the water is when you jump. What happens if you fail? Can you sell insurance by yourself and fire everybody?" I'm like, "Of course I can." He said, "Have you been successful at that?" I'm like, "I've been very successful." He said, "Then what are you afraid of?"
Yeah,
So
your worst case scenario is where you've already been successful. Like, how is that even a
yeah,
decision at that point?
exactly. And that's something, it's a mind shift. But I think, a lot of people on social media, they look at their peers, look at the people on social media, and they say, well, they have to, measure up to what they're doing or have to keep up with what they're doing. And I think, people caring about what other people think or what other people are doing prohibits a lot of growth in agencies. I think if you just put your head down and work your tail off, keep those blinders on. Focus as hard as you can on growing, moving the ball. As Scott used to say all the time, moving your ball 1 inch closer to greatness every single day. If you do that consistently and don't take your eye off the ball, there's no way this thing fails. I listened to your podcast this morning, and you're absolutely right. The insurance industry, unfortunately, is full of C players. So I tell people all the time, if I can be better than a C player, I was a C student, but if I can be better as a C player as an agency and not suck, and I tell the truth, there's nothing that we can't do.
No, it's easy. I mean, I hate to say it's not easy, but it kind of is at the same
Yeah.
time. It's just you have to go out and put the work in.
Right.
And, I find that there are a lot of people out there that concern themselves more with what their peers think of them than what their clients and prospects think of them, and make that evident on social. And to me, that's a dangerous place to live and let your headspace be in, because you're instantly not the best you can be for your clients and prospects if you're constantly defending what you're doing to people who simply don't see your vision. I really don't care. I mean, to be honest with you, there's a lot of people who probably even listen to the podcast. And when I talk about different ways we think about going after accounts as opposed to just quoting and hoping for the best rate so that we can go in and close the deal, think I'm nuts because they've made good money doing it. I would always make the argument, however, that we could compare bank statements or K1s anytime you want, and we'll see how nuts I am. But I mean, what's the point of me even engaging in that? It just that's me distracting myself from my ultimate goal to engage in things that aren't profitable at all. And that would be my advice to producers out there, and even agency principals for that matter. How you want to run your business is your business, period. Quit letting other people rent space in your head for free. It doesn't make any sense to me. And yet here we are. Now, that doesn't mean that I won't occasionally post a meme about tell me what I can't do and I'll go do it, because that's how I've lived my entire life. I feed off of that. Tell me I can't go close that deal.
That's my
I'll
rocket.
close it twice,
That's absolutely my rocket fuel. Yeah, I see that all the time. I think people look for validation from outside sources that don't pay their bills, or people glam on to people that they view are better producers or better agency owners, and they tend to suck up or maybe knock off some of their original content because they think they're going to get something from it. But the reality is you're looking like a fraud. But I think you and I discussed this in Panama. I was like, the one thing that we discovered about each other and with Daniel is that I'm genuine. I am who I am here, and I'll be the same way tomorrow, and you're not going to change. I've had people ask me, is David really like that all the time? I'm like, when he wakes up and when he goes to bed, it's not an act. Being genuine and being transparent.
And super hyper.
Yeah, and people will like you for that or they won't. Either way, I'm okay with it. My wife is having some issues, not real issues, but just the way she perceives her engagement with her manager, and she's super worried about what he thinks about her. And I'm like, I want to empathize as a spouse, but the reality is I can't, because I said, honey, you just happen to be married to a guy who cares nothing about outside people's opinion. I don't care what people think about me.
Well, the reality is the numbers dictate what you're doing and what you're not. Like, I mean, and for me, that goes back to even running grocery stores. That's great if you like me. It's great if you don't, but I'm going to hit my sales per man hour and payroll percent, period. I'm going to hit my gross profit in my perishable department so that I can get my monthly bonus. I'm going to hit my sales incentive so I can get my monthly bonus. Now, most people I found liked the energy and they wanted to be part of that. And we ended up being relatively successful doing it. But, I live and die by numbers, man. And that's the whole thing to me. Numbers have no emotion. There's no psychology there. So, you need to, if you're going to work in my agency, you better have thick skin, because I'm going to call you on your numbers, not in front of everybody, but we're going to have a conversation about it. And if you're not hitting those numbers, then that conversation's likely to be uncomfortable, but it also should never be a surprise. If you're not monitoring your own success prior to me coming to you and saying, hey, we need to have a talk, then you're probably not a right fit for me to begin with.
100%. Like some of the guys I'm starting this other agency with is that, he had one of his guys come in from a carrier that he represents, and he shows up with a suit, and he was, cufflinks, and oh, that's fine. As you know, that's not my style. But um, when they left, it wasn't a good fit for my agency, and that's okay. And when he left, he told my partner, he said, I can't be that guy who goes and sells insurance in shorts and a shirt like this. And he says, well, yeah, that's what Aaron does, and he's going to be is comfortable in his own skin. I said they try to tell him the same thing in AFLAC, because I would like to wear jeans and boots, right, and shirts like this. But the reality was he was outselling everybody that was critiquing him. So what are you going to do, right? I'll outsell anybody, and my numbers are always the best. So it didn't matter what I was. Clearly, it didn't matter what I was wearing. But I think people as producers, you start worrying about, this business owner. Is he going to understand that I'm new at this? Is he going to realize that I'm kind of trying to figure my own spiel out, or I don't have my cold call process out? Is he going to figure that I'm, that whole that imposter syndrome? They don't know. They don't know.
And even if they do, they already have been there in their own career, man. I think that most people give us far more grace than we're willing to realize they'll give us.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you're gonna, when you first become a producer, right? And that's what we're talking about is you're supposed to be bad at it if you've not done this before. I tell my kids, we're a softball and soccer family. You didn't just pick up the bat and the glove and happen to be awesome at softball. You're gonna have to learn to make errant throws. You're gonna have to learn that those throws are gonna get you, a stronger arm, but we're gonna get you on target over time. Same thing with what we're doing here is like you're going to make some bad cold calls before you make good cold calls. Just like barbecue, you got to make bad barbecue before you can make good barbecue. And we can go off on that too. But it's I think people need to be patient with the process. I think people need to have some accountability. I was listening to the podcast this morning, and absolutely, you and Daniel and Scott and Bradley have, probably beknownst to you, held me accountable because I see what y'all do, and I will listen to what y'all do, and I will process it my own way. I'm like, okay, here's what I'm going to start doing now.
Daniel Song, from Uber driver at Disneyland to successful agency owner.
One of the best stories ever. Yeah, that's what rise to fame, right? From Uber to Great Park Insurance. But no, that's it. I mean, I think you have to be patient. You have to be willing to do whatever, but know what else is willing to do. I also think that there's a lot of people in this industry that they think that spending a bunch of money and buying the new shiny objects and things like that is going to get them to where they want to be. Really, it's just doing the reps. You'll get a good golf swing by making the reps. Not.
No, I agree, man, 100%. Because if I just showed up to play a round of golf every day, well, maybe every day I'd get better, but once a week or once a month or whatever, and I never put the time in at the range, you can't expect to be ready for game time if you're not putting in the work when nobody else is watching or doing that. Yeah, and I grew up playing baseball. It was all the, the sessions of throwing, when you're not pitching in a game, or working on your mechanics, or working on your flexibility. I mean, I ended up going into martial arts because that trained me in flexibility, my body to be more flexible as a pitcher, which actually made me throw the ball harder. And, I just kept doing everything I could to stair step. And even in high school, man, I started out playing baseball, but then I started playing basketball so that I could get in shape to be able to play baseball. Then I started playing football to get in shape for basketball, to get in shape for baseball. And it just always led to me just making that incremental progress. And I think that's the other thing too, man. If you're not taking time, I don't know what the increment is. Maybe it's at the end of every month. Maybe it's at the end of every quarter. Maybe it's at the end of every week. It's certainly not, if you're making incremental progress, you don't need to be reflecting daily, but you need to set your benchmarks and step back and look, and it will amaze you how much further you've come than what you actually realize. Because we get so caught up in the daily grind and the real time of everything that we don't ever really notice. But all of a sudden you wake up one day and you started with nothing and your book's 75,000 in commissions. And then 2 years later it's 250. And then 2 years after that, it's 600. And, if we don't stop to look at the progress we've made and actually appreciate that, that's why I'm a big believer, man. Set a goal for yourself, buy something, whether it be a trip, whether it be a watch, whatever it is, buy something to celebrate your milestones and mark that stuff, because it makes it more formal than just putting your head down and going. Now, not everybody's wired that way, but that's the way that I'm wired. And, I've got a lot of things like, that I've talked about it before, but when my book hit 1 million in revenue, my goal was to have a Cartier Roadster. Well, guess what? It didn't happen nearly as quickly as I wanted it to, because I made 2 different agency changes. And by the time I actually hit 1 million in revenue, they discontinued making the Roadster. So I actually had to go find one that was in new condition. And I actually got a better one than I ever would have gotten if I would have bought it new when I was in the mix, thinking I was going to do that, and got the 100th anniversary edition. And it just so happened that the face was almost the exact same color of, my company colors logo. Funny how that happens. But now, every time I look at that watch, I'm like, I remember, why I have this. I remember all not necessarily sacrificed, but everything I went through to be able to have this and commemorate that experience. And it's just like, this year I had a milestone and I made the decision. Like I don't think about this stuff like next week. I think about this stuff like, what am I going to do years from now? Like, I've had it on my hit list that when I feel like I've accomplished something to a certain level, I'm going to get an Audi R8 Spider. Like I know I'm going to have that car. I know that I'm going to have it wrapped in blue flat metallic. And I know that the wheels are going to be powder coated in Florida Risk yellow. And I know that I'm going to have a license plate and what it's going to say on the back of it on the personalized plate. I haven't hit that yet, so I'm not going to go buy that. But this year I hit a goal that I knew I wanted, and I went out and I bought myself a solid gold Rolex Submariner with the blue face and the blue dial. It's 100% company colors, and it shows me what I've achieved in what I've been able to build across all of my brands that have the same, branding strategy. But every time I wear that watch, which is not very frequently, I just sit and think for a minute, man, I never would have had this if I wouldn't have done this, and this. And I just think that when you name it and claim it, it gives you some, like, you would think that money would be enough, right? You would think that if you just say, I'm going to go out and make my book $1 million, having $1 million revenue book and whatever your commission split is, that would be enough. That's never enough for me. I want something tangible in addition to that.
Yeah, and I see your posts and your watch, and we share a lot of stuff on Facebook. But I think Bradley shows watches, and I believe me, I don't comment. I see it. Scott's not much a watch guy, but I've got my eye on something, and it's going to be very similar to what you're talking about. It's a Rolex, and it's going to have the company colors, about that blue color right there is going to be on there. And when I hit it, I'm going to be proud of it. And then I have to move that up. I think something else that when you were talking, I was thinking about is, when you're trying to get better, are you really trying to get better? Are you lying to yourself? I think people being self-aware to realize what you're doing is not making you better. And one of the examples I was thinking of this morning, and y'all can throw all the shade you want to, but unless you're a very,
he don't care. He don't care if you throw it or not.
Yeah,
Right, no space in his head, people.
Yeah, very social people. Going to a networking event will very rarely lead you to anything other than waste of time. It's you're trying to validate in your own mind that you're doing work, right? I see people all the time that fail in business, and they're constantly going to networking events or BNI. You know what? Unless you're going intentionally and handing your business card and you're going doing that, most of these people who go to these events, they go stand in a corner and have a cocktail and a cookie. That's not networking. So if you're ready to get socially, out there and talk to everybody in that room, then go to them. Until then, do something else that's making you money, because you're lying to yourself. And until you're ready to get completely honest, and be held accountable, join the Killing Commercial Club, join these programs, the boot camp thing that Dave's got, things that hold you accountable, teach you how to get to the next level, until you're ready to have that kind of honesty. And I'm very aware of what I'm good at. I'm also very aware I'm not good at. And I don't try to fake the funk. I will I will never be a Lululemon model for their sportswear. We
We're in
can,
the same boat there, brother.
yeah, I mean, it was never going to be that way, and I'm completely fine with it. But the things I'm good at, I double down on them. And I do see a lot of producers out there, and if you're hearing this and you're in earshot of this podcast and you find yourself on an island to where you're out working for an agency and you're not getting the support you need, I see this all the time. Reach out, find somebody that can help you. I have had help from David, from tons of other people that they're giving selflessly of their time and their knowledge to me for no strings attached, and find someone who's willing to help you like that. I've got a guy I spoke with last night that struggling to start his agency and needed some direction, and he wanted to go spend a bunch of money. And I'm like, bro, you don't need to do that. Let me help you. So if you're on that island, reach out to people. I would love to help and point you in the right direction of what you need to be doing, because I have built what I've built on just doing what people said I wouldn't, and getting a lot of help from yourself and Scott and Bradley and Daniel and people who are way smarter than me. I want to be the brokest dude in my friends group, and God, I am. So by a good margin. But I think the more honest people are with themselves, the better off your transition from agency or producer to agency owner or whatever you want to do. But up that financial scale, we're all trying to climb that financial mountain. The easier that climb will get.
Yeah, two things. Number one, I don't remember if it was in this morning's shop talk or the one that releases next Friday, because I recorded them both this week. But one thing I think producers really need to understand is take your continuing education and stuff seriously. Like, there's so many people out there that you see them saying, "Hey, where's the best place to get the fastest continuing ed credits the cheapest?" And I'm like, I want to know where that guy or that lady's out producing, because I want to make sure that's who I compete against.
Yeah.
They're not trying to be better for their clients and prospects. They're trying to check a box. And
Yeah.
I love beating the snot out of box checkers every single day. The second thing I would tell you is, to your point about going to networking groups and the glad handing BS that happens when you go there that really doesn't accomplish anything. I don't care if it's a networking event. I don't care if it's a trade show. You can do things to set yourself up for success when you go there. And so, what I've always done more on the trade show side of things, because you usually know who's going to be there ahead of time. But even if not, you can still set a generic goal that would work the same way. I always had a list of 3 to 5. That's it. There might be 4,000 people at the trade show, but there were 3 to 5 connections that I wanted to make that were people that were the exact prospect that I wanted to get in front of. And I knew they were going to be there, and it would be a chance for me to do that. And so I'm telling you, man, tunnel vision, laser focus, blinders on. I would go in, and you know what? If I met all of those people and got my mission accomplished in the first 2 or 3 hours of a trade show that went 3 or 4 days, I was going to have a great vacation the other 3 days. I didn't care about going back, because anybody else was not who I had focused on being there. I might get some time doing that, but I also might have the opportunity to take those new relationships, parlay them into a dinner or something else while I'm still in town for that trade show. But I'm not going to waste my time just going and glad handing with a bunch of people that are there to do the same thing, and nothing comes from it, right? So if you plan this stuff out in advance, if you know who it is that you're going there to try and connect with, and you make it a point that you're going to find, like, dude, I literally would walk the trade show halls until I found that person. I didn't care if they were at somebody else's booth. I'd tap them on the shoulder, engage in conversation, and we were off to the races at that point. Sometimes I would get it done literally in the first 3 or 4 hours of being there. The rest of the time, maybe it took me a day, 2 days, 3 days, but I knew that I was successful if I could check everybody else's name off the list, that I went there to meet, period.
100%. And here's the thing. I'll ask you a dumb question. I guarantee you, once you got the introduction and that card, your communication didn't stop there. Well, I see so many people when I first got started. A lot of it, I've seen myself do that, and I had to stop. When you go meet someone at an event like that, follow up with an email. Hey, it was really good to talk to you. I can't remember who it was, but somebody wrote a book called The Extra 2 Minutes. That a thing is going the extra 2 minutes. Going doing above and beyond what your peer group's not willing to do is what set you apart and make your agency be far more successful. But I think that fear of rejection and I have a desire to win and be successful far more than my fear of rejection. I don't, again, I literally don't care. I told my wife, unfortunately, I would love to empathize with you. I don't have any, I don't understand your willingness to be accepted by other people. I don't care. I literally don't care. But putting yourself out there like that. And here's another thing I told you that's been very successful. Oh man, well they're with Marsh, or they're with Aon, or they're with Brown and Brown. I don't care. I literally don't care. I told you in Panama, one of the second win that I get is whenever I take over an account. The financial part's obviously going to help pay the bills and support my agency. The second one is how many people from that group that I just took their account just hit my LinkedIn page and looked at my page. I love that. I love that. And so if you're out there and you're like, well, that's a little larger account. Hey, there's people out there, and David's helped me with some of my stuff on kind of direction on how I should do things. But look, there's a lot of agencies out there who are afraid to go after the big guys, and they love that you're scared. Don't be scared, because that consumer out there is looking for direction, for leadership, for knowledge, experience, all those things that you possess, and they're not getting the attention from these big guys because they're a small fish in a big pond. If
No, I
you,
mean, what was it? It was like maybe last week's episode of Shop Talk was leveling the playing field
yeah,
for agencies like ours. Like, people get so worried about competing against national brokers and everything. And the reality is they're some of the easiest ones to compete against, because the accounts that are big to us are small to them, and they don't get the amount of attention that they deserve. And while they have tools that they can use in their firms to deliver risk management services or whatever else, rarely are they delivering them down to accounts that are that size, number one. And number two, we have access to those same things, right? That's why I talk about stuff like Zenjuries for claims management, or Yellowbird for outsourced loss control, and all of that. Those are godsends for me, because those are positions I could not afford to hire in my agency, that larger agencies tout that they have those people in-house. But because we're not hiring people that are willing to work for what an agency can afford, we're getting the best in class people, and we're getting them at the rate that we need to have them for just that one project. We're getting actually better resources in many cases, and not paying nearly as much to have them. So if you have it in your head, you can't compete on that account because they really need somebody to go in and deliver loss control on workers' comp, that's a you problem, because you certainly have the ability to do that.
yeah, I think be confident in your being there. You've already given the validation by them taking the meeting with you. That's in the opener of the Power Producers podcast. You've been validated by being let into the room. Right, go there, do your thing, show them why you're different, and be honest about it, and be very transparent. Once you do that, guess what? Crazy things will happen after that.
I've got a saying that I tell people, new producers specifically, that I work with all the time, and it's that CFOs watch Tommy Boy too. Like, honest to God, man, like, one of the things that I do, and I swear to God, if you're like, people in Killing Commercial can validate this, because I actually post recordings of me in new business calls when I'm able to record them because they're over Zoom or whatever. But I will drop movie quotes from Billy Madison, Happy Gilmore, Tommy Boy, whatever, any of the movies that we grew up thinking were the absolute most hilarious movies ever. And I'll drop them in there. And if I get a chuckle from the CFO, then I know they're my people, man. If they don't chuckle, they don't even know it's a movie quote, more than likely, because they probably haven't seen it. So you don't do any damage. But it's kind of like a ninja way of figuring out how loose you can be in the meeting when you're talking to somebody. And 9 times out of 10, if they're in our same age range, which most of them are, they're going to laugh, man. You'll know they have seen it, and you're like, got him, or got her at the same time.
One of the guys working on an acquisition of his agency, the very first conversation we had via text message, I dropped a Big Lebowski on him, and he rolled back, LOL, across the screen. I'm like, Okay, these are my people. We can have a genuine conversation. There's no more pretentious stuff we have to do. But yeah, get on the same level playing field with folks is so easy to do, and people walk in uptight, and I think when you walk in,
They're an uber distilled version of who they really are. And that's never going to resonate, because the problem when you do that and it's not who you are is you have to keep that act up the entire time. And most people are not capable of that. In fact, I don't know anybody who's capable of it, which, to your point earlier, man, I am who I am. People either like it or they don't, but nothing I do is an act. In the same way that I act with you in Panama or Alaska, or even just in the thread with Bradley and Scott, is the exact same way I act with my clients, my prospects, the people in Killing Commercial. I'm the same dude all the way around. And I think that's something that it's really, really important for people that are out there as producers, especially if you're wanting to move upstream and get into larger, middle market accounts where maybe you've only done small commercial. It's honestly even more important that you're yourself in those, because you have more money on the line. And I think that people consciously think that that's where it's more important to be. I don't want to say I'm not unprofessional, but just, tighty whitey starch white dress shirt. That I'm never going to be that dude, man. And you know what? Do I lose business as a result of some of it? Yeah. Go ahead. Buy your insurance from the bank who does your financing and everything else. Those guys all shop at Brooks Brothers. They wear the rep ties and everything else. That's who you need in your life. That's not who I am.
Yeah.
I'm going to be who I am, period.
Yeah. The last account, the largest account I think I told you guys about, one of the reasons why I got that, other than me being completely transparent with them and showing them how their previous broker put a $50,000 undisclosed fee on their stuff, was that the CFO was a new CFO. The previous broker had a good relationship with the previous CFO, and he's the guy who was a new one. And they went to a golfing outing, and they never even acknowledged he was there, didn't know he was there. And this guy took his job and his role very seriously, but the new broker never even acknowledged he was there. And I went and sat with everybody. I went and sat the owners and the HR lady and the CFO. We talked to everybody, and he's like, you know what? I trust you. I know you're going to do what's right by our business. And I said, you're absolutely right. I will. And I'll be transparent about what I can do. And in the market that we got was I was expecting a double-digit increase, came back with not only a flat renewal, but actually ended up saving them money on the premium, and also took off the $50,000 undisclosed fee from their previous broker. That goes a long way, we do all their insurance benefits now, and then we've gotten multiple referrals from people they work with, just because we're being transparent. Because right now the margins are so thin on business that they're looking for reasons to find savings if possible. But the one thing they want to know, and please, if you don't hear anything I've said yet, the one thing that consumers are looking for is assurance, not insurance, that they have the best stuff available and there's no gaps. If you can provide security, that they have the best stuff possible, and you can assure them that and be transparent with your marketing approaches. When I do my marketing, here's what, if I'm quoting, right, I'll go, here's who I recommend you buy, here's who I don't recommend you buy, and here's who's told us maybe, but the maybes have contingencies, right? Maybe these are contingencies that we can work on. Maybe this is a carrier we really want to get to, but there's some stipulations that we have to change. And maybe we don't change those because those are core to our business. But if we can get to being completely transparent and showing them, hey, this is the best thing that's out there, you'll never lose the business to competition.
Yeah, and the thing is, man, you don't even really have to be overly granular in explaining that to people. I'll tell you right now, like the way that I typically put people at ease that they're going to get the absolute best, offer from what we're doing is I let them know, listen, I'm going to do my best, put my best effort forward for you. Here's the program that we're recommending. But so that you're not uncomfortable with anything in here, I just want to let you know, I carry an $8 million E&O limit with a $10 million layer above that. So I've got 18 million reasons why I want to make sure I give you the best advice up front. And you have no concerns, because if I do make a mistake, I've got the financial backing to make sure that you don't suffer as a result of that. And I don't think agencies talk about that enough, to be honest with you. But I know that if I'm running a business and somebody comes in and they've got $18 million of E&O limit on their work, they're probably going to take their work pretty seriously because they don't necessarily want to have that payout.
I've literally never heard that, and I will start saying that moving forward after today.
Yeah.
That is great. You're absolutely right.
And I don't think the average client understands that, right? I don't think they equate, like, I again, to find common ground with people when they start bitching about price. I'm like, listen, you must be under the impression there's an employee discount for insurance. Like, I buy insurance too. And
Yeah.
I have the exact same issues that you have. And so I just want to make sure you understand, I'm not looking through this through a lens of, hey, I'm here to try and sell you something. I am empathetic with you. I live in Florida. I used to pay $1,600 a year for my homeowners, and it's now $5,300 for the same house. I've never moved, And so, I used to pay whatever we paid for our auto, and here's what we pay now. I hate that I don't know what it is, but honestly, I try and expunge it because I don't even want to get disgusted with what the rates are these days.
Right.
But at the end of the day, like, people need to understand that, we're the middleman here. We don't set the rate. And I think so many times we get blamed for pricing, but we don't have good ways to explain to people why we're in the situation we're in. Probably one of the best things that I did over the course of the last year. And I listen, people, I recommend everybody do this. This is one that you probably want to write down. And not just necessarily for this topic. But one of the reasons the rates are so bad right now is because of reinsurance. And when I get up and speak in public, one of the questions I ask people, just say, hey, raise your hand if you have a good canned 30-second to a minute elevator pitch on how reinsurance works and why it affects the rates the way that it does. And nobody ever can do that because, quite frankly, y'all ain't been taking your continuing ed seriously, like I already mentioned, and you don't even understand exactly how it works and how it affects rates. So what I did was I went in and I do this with every insurance concept that I need to explain to somebody in layman's terms. I go to ChatGPT, I type it in as I would say it, as somebody who's knowledgeable of the subject, and then I ask it to come to translate that into a 6th or an 8th grade reading level and make it easy to understand. And guess what happens? It's magic. It gives you words that, quite honestly, I never would have come up with. And I don't want to say because I can't dumb it down. It's just really hard to look at it through somebody's eyes who doesn't understand things when you understand them at a high level. And so I had it create a Facebook post about reinsurance and how it was affecting rates and how we were combating that. And all I did was post it to my personal page, and I can't tell you the amount of inbound leads we got for personal lines opportunities at the agency because I took the time, not really, ChatGPT did it for me, but to explain something that nobody knew. And the amount of people who had a light bulb moment that said, I didn't even realize this was a thing. I didn't know that's how this worked. Crazy, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely crazy.
I had something very similar happen when I was getting frustrated with the amount of time that it took me to go to market. Why I couldn't get quotes back within 30 days of the expiration date. And I was getting frustrated. And of course, now 30 days would be a blessing. I'm looking 2 weeks would be fantastic. But now I could never figure that out. And I'm asking the wrong people, right? My peer group. Well, I finally got to ask that question to an underwriter who decided to give me a good answer. That's not something I see. They're saying the reason why that's happening is because more people in this industry are shopping. Rates have gone up across the board, just not with, let's say, property or HAB or construction. All rates have gone up. We have more submissions, yet nobody's jumping ship to come be an insurance underwriter because that's not a glamorous job. So we're stuck at our max capacity when it comes to employees, and we have 10 times the work we have now. So our workload has gone through the roof. And I'm like, why didn't you say that a year ago when I've been complaining about it? But yeah, putting things in people's wheelhouse where they kind of get it. It had a dramatic light bulb moment for me. And I'm like, okay, well, now what do I need to adapt? Okay, I'd go 90 days or 60 days out from some small commercial stuff. Now I go out 100 days prior on all commercial to start the remarketing process. I start my first contact 100 days prior to the X date to make sure I've got plenty of time. If we come up to the wire, it's not because I didn't contact you early enough. They just failed to give me what I needed, and that's a different conversation. However, yeah, you have to adapt with what you're given. You can complain on Facebook about the rates, the market, the market of the things are going up. None of that's going to change it. What are you going to do to adapt? What are you going to do to stand out? Who's going to help you do that? And are you partner with the right people to do it? And then also, are you teaching yourself or getting the education you need to be different? We can sit here and complain, oh, I'm not good at being it. What have you done to change it? To your point with CE or extra training. I listen to a podcast. It is I'm very vocal. Max Revenue. We talk about those guys. I listen to them. Micah Sauce has been we've become a pretty good friend of his, and I want to learn from him. There's tons of stuff I can learn from people who've not done it as long as I am. I'm not proud to ask for help, and people have been gracious with their time, such as yourself. And if I could ever offer help to anybody and share what I've learned, I would do the same thing. I have an obligation to pay it forward because of the help that I've received, and that's just how I choose to live my life.
That is a perfect way to end the podcast. So tell them how to find you, man.
Yeah, so we're Robertson Insurance Group here in San Antonio, Texas. My cell phone, I'll give it out right now, 806 area code representing LBK Lubbock. It's 806-239-2502. Yeah, we'd love to help. The other question I'd have to ask you, Dave, is where are we going next?
I don't know, man. I feel like the Bluefin are calling us up off the coast of Nova Scotia.
Seen it, bro. Those things are massive. I think we land a fish bigger than us. We can check that off our list.
I agree. Well, listen, man, appreciate you taking time to come on today. Lots of good stuff that we talked about. Yeah. People, like Aaron said, you got access to all kinds of information. The question is, what are you doing with it? We'll catch you next time. See ya.